everyone. In this video, we will be talking about loops. So let's get started with this interactive story. What is a loop? There's a voiceover, so we're going to listen to myself talk, and I'll help you along with some of the coding challenges. What is a loop? Basic coding concepts. Click on Get Started to begin. You can also watch the video of this story and click on Student Workbook to be redirected to the remixable story where you can code each of the coding challenges yourself by clicking on the Remix button to copy the story for you to work on. So if you're a teacher and you assign what is a loop from our curriculums page, the student workbook will be a remixable template already. But if you just want to try it out yourself, you could just click on student workbook. It'll open up to the story here. And this is just a template where the student or you can drag the blocks together to make the code work. So let's just take a look at that really quick. I'm going to click on the remix button here to make a copy of it for me to work on. And here is the student workbook. So there are 3 coding challenges. I'm going to just take a look at coding challenge number 1. I'm going to go to the event graph, and here you'll see that we have all my blocks and none of them are connected. So the challenge is obviously to connect the blocks so that the code for the animation will work. So let's go back to the original story, What is a Loop, and get started and see all the animations and learn more about loops. So what is a loop in programming? A loop repeats a sequence of functions, also known as instructions, until a condition is met. Usually, this is the number of times it is looping. To better understand loops, you should know what functions as well as functions in sequence are. Click on the buttons to be redirected to the stories. Otherwise, click See Example to begin with an example of a loop. Okay, we're going to go ahead and click on See Example. Let's now start our coding challenge example. Click on the Start button to see the animation, and then write down the instructions for the animation. I've helped you out already. See how many times the fox bounces when I click on the Start button. Are you ready? So 3, 2, 1, start. Were you able to count how many times the fox bounced? Let's try one more time. 3, 2, 1, start. Were you able to get how many times the bounce function was looped? Let's take a look at the answer. So I'm going to click See Answer. And the fox bounces 3 times. So let's count together. I'm going to click on the Start button. 1, 2, 3. Great. So let's see how this is actually coded. Great. So now we know that our instructions are as follows. When I click on the Start button, the fox bounces 3 times. Check out the blocks that we have on this page. There are 4 of them. How can we connect the blocks together so that the code works? So how can we connect the blocks together? So what object are we clicking? And what object is bouncing? I'm going to click on See Answer so we can take a look at the answer. Take a look at the orange on-click event block. You'll notice that there is a loop and a number times. In our case, we want the fox to bounce 3 times. So we're going to change the number to 3. This is how many times the function will loop or repeat. Click on Next to start the coding challenges. Okay, so we can put the number of times it loops in our orange event block. And in our case, we're only looping one function, which is bounce. So bounce repeats or loops 3 times. So, are you ready for the coding challenges? Let's get started. Are you ready? We have 3 coding challenges. Can you solve them all? Click on Challenge 1 to begin. Let's go. Coding challenge number 1. Click on the Start button to begin the animation. Write down the instructions for the animation. Okay, I'm going to click on the Start button now. Did you pay attention to the animation? Remember to write down the instructions for the animation. I'm going to click on the Start button now. Okay, let's take a look at some of the hints. Try to answer the following questions. What direction does the ghost move? Does the ghost always face the same direction? And finally, is there a loop? And how many times does it loop? Once you're ready, click on Start Coding to try to see how we can connect the blocks together. So here you can pause if you want to think about the answers to these questions. I'm going to go ahead and help you answer some of these questions. So, question number 1. What direction does the ghost move? So I'm going to click on Start, right, left, right, left. Question number 2. Does the ghost always face the same direction? Yes or no? So right now he's facing the direction to the right. Does he always face this way? Let's take a look. I'm going to click on the Start button. He's facing the right, then the left, then the right, then the left, and then the right again. So, is there a loop? And how many times does this loop? So remember, an animation can be a sequence of functions, one after the other. And a loop is when you repeat a sequence of functions or a sequence of instructions. So let's actually go ahead and start coding to see what blocks are available. Can you figure out how to connect the blocks together? How many connections are there? And finally, for the green move block, what do we put for the X pixels? Okay, so what are we clicking? And what object is moving? What object is flipping? what object is moving, and then what object is flipping again. So we have to make sure our objects are matching, purple circle to purple circle. And then this is a sequence of functions. So it's one after another. So first it's going to move to the right, then it flips, moves to the left, and then it flips. And how many times does this loop? If you need more time, click on the pause button. Otherwise, I'm going to click on See Answer so we can see the answer. In coding challenge number 1, we are looping a sequence of functions 2 times. The sequence is as follows. First, we move the ghost 200 pixels to the right. Then we flip him so he faces the left. Then we move him 200 pixels to the left. And finally, we flip him again so he faces the right. After this, we go back to the beginning again and repeat the sequence all over. You can click on the Show Arrows button to see how that all works. Okay, so let's take a look at coding challenge number 2. If you need more time, you can press the pause button. Otherwise, let's go. Are you ready for coding challenge number 2? Click on the Start button to begin the animation. Write down the instructions for the animation. Okay, I'm going to click on the Start button in 3, 2, 1, start. Okay, that was a lot of animation. Pay attention. I'm going to play it one more time. Ready, set, go. Let's take a look at the hint. Answer the following questions. What direction does the candy move? Is there a loop to this animation? And if so, how many times does this animation loop? Okay, I'm going to play the animation one more time before we go through the questions. Okay, ready? Go. Okay, question number 1. What direction does the candy move? So the candy moves kind of like in a square formation. So it moves first to the right, then down, then to the left, and then up. Okay, so that's what happens. And how many times does it do that? How many times does it loop? Let's play the animation one last time before we get started coding. So how many times does it loop? Let's get started coding. Can you connect the blocks together? What should be the X and Y values for each of the move blocks? And finally, how many times does this animation loop? Okay, let's take a look at the hint. The function move moves an object relative to its current position. So, if x is 0 pixels and y is 0 pixels, the object does not move. Take a look at the upper right-hand corner to see what values x and y need to be to move an object to the left, to the right, up, or down. Okay, so on elementary, to move an object, there are two blocks that you can use. One of them is move, which moves an object relative to its current position. So if it's 0, 0, then the object does not move. It stays in the same place. If x is 200 pixels and y is 200 pixels, then the object moves to the right 200 pixels. It'll be where the green dot is. And if x is 0 pixels and y is 200 pixels, then it will move down where this orange yellow dot is. So let's take a look real quick at the student workbook, and I'll just show you the other block that you can use to move. So we use move, but there's also move to point. The difference is move to point moves an object to the x and y position. So if it's 0, 0, then the object will be in this upper left-hand corner. And you can drag an object around and you'll see that there is an x and y value. So if you want to move it to a specific location on the page, you can use move to point instead. So I'm going to go back to our story, and if you need more time, you can pause it. Otherwise, let's take a look at the answer. In coding challenge number 2, we are moving the candy corn first to the right, then down, then to the left, and then up. We loop this animation 2 times. Okay, now let's get started with our last coding challenge. Here's the last coding challenge. Click on the Start button to begin the animation and write down the instructions for the animation. Are you ready? 3, 2, 1, start. And that's it. I'm going to play it one more time. Ready? Set. Go. Now let's take a look at the hints. What is similar to the animation in coding challenge number 2? And what is different to the animation in coding challenge number 2? So take a moment to think about these two questions. What is similar and what is different? And write down your answers. I'm going to play the animation one more time before I go into each of these questions. Ready, set, go. If you need more time, click on the pause button. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and answer some of the questions. So, what is similar to the animation in coding challenge number 2? So remember, coding challenge number 2 was the candy corn moving just in a square formation 2 times. So it looped 2 times. So the similarities are that in this animation, it moves also in a square, and it does it 2 times as well. Now, what's different is that now we are rotating the candy corn while we're moving it. So it's moving and rotating at the same time. So let's start coding. First, we have the animation from coding challenge number 2. Remember, this animation moves the candy corn in a square shape. Now we want to add a rotation to the animation. We want the candy corn to move and rotate at the same time. How do you connect the blocks to make the candy corn rotate and move at the same time? So, how do we connect the blocks? And finally, how many degrees do we rotate the candy corn? So, how many degrees is in one full circle? You can click on the pause button to have more time. And I will click on See Answer to take a look at the answer. In the final coding challenge, we take the animation from coding challenge number 2 and we add a rotation to the candy corn. So each time the candy corn moves, it is rotating 360 degrees, one full circle. You can click on the button Other Answer to see an alternative way to code this same animation. So we can take a look, and we're moving and rotating each 1 second. And we're moving and rotating each for 1 second. And then once we finish the sequence, we repeat and we do it all over again. So the animation loops 2 times. So let's take a look at what the other answer looks like. Remember, in code, you can do the same thing, but with different blocks and with sometimes even different values in the fields. So in our case, we did 360 degrees for a duration of 1 second. But let's take a look at the other answer. This is an alternative solution to coding challenge number 3. Instead of rotating the candy corn with 4 rotation blocks, each with 360 degrees for a duration of 1 second, you can instead use 1 rotate block with an angle of 1,140 degrees for a duration of 4 seconds. And we can only do this because the rotation is the same speed for all of the directions that it's moving. If, for example, the candy corn rotates 90 degrees for 1 second, then it rotates 360 degrees for 1 second, then we can't do this just using 1 rotate block. But in our case, we are having the same speed for the entire animation, so we could just use 1 rotate block to make things a little bit easier. So that's it for looping functions. You finished the coding challenge. Up next is what is a variable? And that's it. You learned all about loops and looping functions. If you have any questions, feel free to put a comment in the description, and see you in the next video on what is a variable.